Hello, everybody. It's just a few seconds before 12 noon, so we are about to start the webinar. Webinar number 2 for the Retail Bulletin, the evolution of customer loyalty, delivering a personalized customer experience. We are now at 12 o'clock indeed, so the clock has passed, so welcome officially. I'm Darren Williams. I'm the founder of Williams Harding Consulting. Williams Harding, in a nutshell, works with startups, distressed businesses or expanding businesses in interim or strategic roles. I'm currently the CEO, for example, of a men's skincare brand called Scrubbed. Pretty long interim. I've been there for almost 2 years next March. So it's been a great gig, but that's the type of thing that I do. I'm also the interim ops director of a new brand called Story that you'll be seeing coming your way, which is in the aesthetics world and is owned by Harley Academy. I'm here with my dog. She's called Scamp. She may or may not appear during the webinar. Apologies in advance if she does. All you dog lovers out there, I'm sure, will be happy about it. But if she does appear, bear with me, and she'll join us for a few moments. We have a brilliant panel today, and I'm going to ask them to introduce themselves in just a moment. And then I'll come on to how the webinar is going to work over the next 45 minutes or so. Hopefully you will find it a really compelling and engaging session. And we get to keep your interest for the length of the webinar. But for now, I'm going to introduce my panel. And if I can start, please, with Andy, if you can tell us who you are and a little bit about your business as well.
Yeah, hello everybody, really good to be talking to you all today. So my name's Andy Stockwell, I'm Chief Commercial Officer at RedEye. So we are an AI-driven marketing automation platform. I've been with RedEye since we were a startup, so 20 years now, so a very long time in our current digital world. And before RedEye I was at HP, so my background is very much technology and data. And really where I have worked with my clients over the last 20 years is helping them generate value out of the data that they hold. So finding new ways to take action and then automating communications as much as possible to allow marketers such as all of yourselves to be coming up with the next strategies, etc. So yeah, very nice to talk to you all.
Thank you so much, Andy, and thanks for joining us on the panel today. Nabila, tell us about you.
Yeah, hi everybody, I'm Nabila Richardson. I'm the founder at Curious and Creative, which is a digital marketing consultancy helping business solve their problems with digital marketing solutions. I work with brands to go deep into understanding who their audience is and unlock the insights that matter, helping them to convert their audience into customers. I set up Curious and Creative around a month ago, and previous to that, I was head of marketing at a global luxury travel company, where my responsibilities range from everything from implementing our integrated strategies through to customer acquisition, brand partnerships, and executing campaigns. Before I was at the travel company, I actually worked as a digital lead for Oxford Street and Bond Street, working with brands from everyone from Selfridges and Phoenix right through to Nike and Primark, where we got to work on exciting campaigns like the Oxford Street Christmas lights and working on always on marketing.
Was that as part of the West End company as well?
Yeah, the New West End company.
New West End company. Okay, cool. I didn't know that. Okay. Well, welcome to the panel. Thank you for being here today as well. Looking forward to going through the session with you. Emily, tell us about you.
Hi everyone, I'm Emily. I am Senior Marketing Manager at Lucky Saint. We're a 0.5% alcohol-free superior unfiltered lager. Might sound contradictory to say 0.5% alcohol-free, but there's about as much alcohol in a bottle of our beer as a banana. So I've been with Lucky Saint for about 8 months. So I joined the company just as the UK went into lockdown. So it's been a really interesting journey for me. E-commerce has become really, really important for our business, and customer loyalty has become a real kind of point of conversation. So yeah, really excited to be here and chatting to you all.
Thanks, Emily. And yeah, that 0.5% still matters though, I remember, drinking Panda Shandy as a young man in the 80s, and it was 0.5% and felt like I was actually having a beer, so.
It adds a lot of flavour, but you could drink about 85 pints of Lucky Saint and you couldn't possibly be drunk.
yeah. I realised that as well.
I've tried.
Great to have you here. Thank you. Rebecca, tell us about you.
Hello everybody, my name's Rebecca Saunders and I am the founder of Seekology, which is a destination to shop from independent beauty and wellbeing brands. It's a very new company. We launched exactly a year ago. Before that, I have worked in retail for many years, in the US and the UK for retailers like Argos, Norton High Street, and I was the beauty buyer at John Lewis. At Seekology, we support over 80 independent brands. We opened our first shop last November, closed it, opened a new one, closed it. So it's been a rollercoaster year, but we love giving our customers the opportunity to engage with new brands through a lot of storytelling.
Thank you. Thank you for being here today as well. And sir, please wrap us up. Say hello and tell us who you are.
Absolutely. So I'm Desi. Thanks for having me on, guys. And I'm a UX professional working in senior management. I've spent around 20 plus years within the web industry, about 10 years plus focused on UX, building teams, mentoring, helping others succeed, empowering them to be hopefully better than everybody else. And that's really what makes UX great. My last role was at DEBENHAMS. I've moved on since then during the pandemic, just like Emily. I work at Victorinox now, still within UX management, focused as an expert there, helping them to improve their brand and help their brand and experience really be akin to their customers.
Thank you, sir. And I'm sure Debenhams, could be one of the subjects that comes up today. It's obviously a retailer that's quite in focus at the moment, particularly on the back of the pandemic and arguably even before that as well. So Let's see what comes up. We won't give you any awkward questions, don't worry. A quick note to our sponsors for this session. Thank you to the Sabio Group and also RedEye, where Andy comes from as well. Sabio provides expertise and solutions to respond to ever-changing needs and customers. And as Andy's mentioned with RedEye, they're already trusted by hundreds of big brands with their digital marketing. So thank you to the headline sponsors of the Retail Bulletin webinars today. We appreciate you. Audience, we'd love you to get involved. We will be asking the panel a number of different questions, but you can ask questions too, and we prefer it that way. So if you can use the Q&A button at the top of your screen, I will get to see the questions that you are asking, and I will make sure that we get through each and every one of them, as we did with the last panel as well. If you have a generic question, just say to all panelists, or if you want to ask a question of the panel individually, please do so, and I'll put your question to them. But yeah, any questions that go into the Q&A box will get through in this session as well. So please stay with us. We'll aim to not be too boring. Hold your interest. Hopefully you've got a hot drink or something similar by your side, and we'll begin. Customer loyalty is something that's thrown around a lot and has been for many, many years. And it isn't just about knowing a customer's email address and saying, "Hi, John," in an email. It's so much more than that. And this session really looks to explore how you can tailor your data and how you can possibly work around doing things even better than before. You might not have been doing it at all before, but we'll explore that too. One of my absolute bugbears at the start of the pandemic was the amount of companies that suddenly cared about me. And so I was suddenly getting loads and loads of emails from businesses that I hadn't heard of for a generation, who wanted me to know, one, how they were dealing with the pandemic, two, how they were looking after their team, or three, how they cared about me as a customer, or all of the above. And actually, the only thing I felt was it was completely disingenuous. So, how do you engender customer loyalty and communicate them in a way that they want to be loyal and I guess believe you, which is probably quite important. Andy, I'm going to ask you to kick off if I can, please, sir. What changes in behavior have you seen, I guess, since the pandemic, and how should these be handled as we move towards a more normal world in the future?
Yeah, I think, probably everyone on this call will realise that everything changed, on that date back in March when we first went into lockdown. So probably one of the first things which we're all very used to now, but at the time I think was a big shock to a lot of businesses, was how the product ranges that people were showing an interest with just changed almost completely overnight. To begin with, I think a lot of businesses thought that might have been quite short term, but obviously as lockdown continued, they had to almost pivot their businesses to, go after completely different product ranges. Things that they'd never really stocked before became their leads. Times of purchase, how we engage digitally has massively changed during that period. So, people were browsing a lot earlier and buying a lot later in the evenings. So, that's something that's very interesting, because it hasn't actually gone fully back to where it was before the pandemic either. We've as consumers, we've kept a lot of that change in how we engage. I think a lot of brands have seen basket item numbers go up. So, you know, when good customers are buying, they're actually adding more to their basket than they were previously. So again, that might show a shift more from an online point of view. I think we've seen a lot about brands have spent a lot more on acquisition. So again, what that's done is that's brought in totally different customers. So, you know, when we're all looking at our digital analytics, you know, our customer segments look very different to they did before the pandemic. So I think probably the best thing around looking forward is it's not just about saying, right, things are going to go back to normal, let's go back to what we were doing before. All of our businesses are completely different, and how we target them has got to change. So for us, that goes back, you know, to your segmentation strategy. You know, what are the new profiles of customers and how are we targeting each of those? Something that we've got going on at the moment, obviously we're in probably what will be the biggest peak that we've ever had for the retail businesses. You know, this is the perfect time to really, you know, layer up with those customers what we're about as a business, so that they can buy from us. So yeah, they're probably some of the biggest things for me, and this is the perfect time for us to, you know, to really get right what we do moving forwards.
Yeah, I mean, from a digital marketing perspective, you know, digital marketing in its very essence gives businesses that use it the agility to pivot immediately, right? And to change their message. I think we could all remember that weird moment, you know, those first few weeks of what was a real lockdown. Certainly felt like one, not compared to this time, but this one doesn't even feel like a real lockdown in London. But I remember going down Oxford Street, sort of virtually the only person on my bicycle for my daily exercise. And there was just all the windows still locked in Mother's Day, you know, and sort of, you know, dust in the windows and posts piling up and just this weird Mother's Day windows everywhere. And I just thought, you know, you're stuck in that kind of world of physical retail. It's stuck with where you left it. But at least when you're in the digital space and you market mainly through the digital space, you can pivot immediately. So in some sense, you guys must have been busier than ever.
Yeah, we had a record new business quarter during lockdown. Yeah. So, you know, for us, it was brilliant. And that seems to be continuing now, which is great. But that's what's so exciting about this. You know, everywhere's talking, you know, there's different numbers being quoted at how many years of digital improvement we got in that 7 weeks. And, you know, 7 years in 7 weeks is a huge amount of change. And I think as consumers, we all feel that as well. I think probably every single person listening today is doing things very differently to they were before. So I always like to give the example of my mother. So my mum was one who was always buying offline, and now she's online first. You know, I love talking about emails that she receives. You know, she'll talk about a brand and how they've written to her. That's how she sees it. But she expects that to be completely personalized. So for me, she's a great microcosm of what a lot of new online buyers want now. You know, they expect a huge amount from us now as online retailers and online businesses.
And therein lies the opportunity. Thank you, sir. Great kickoff. It's funny, actually, you mentioned products. I saw some random fact yesterday that one of the #1 must-haves this Christmas are rollerblades or roller skates. And so people are scrambling to get enough stock because it is one of the #1 must-haves this year. Who knew? It's making a total renaissance because of the amount of time being spent outdoors. So why didn't I have this idea to buy a roller skate business back in March? It would have been amazing. I could have retired early. Nabila, hello. You just started your own business. What do you see as the top trends in customer loyalty, and how can retailers utilize them? And feel free to chuck any best examples in if you want to as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's a couple of really interesting emerging trends happening within that space. One of them really being strategic loyalty program partnerships. So, you know, partnerships is not something that's necessarily new within retail, but when it comes to a loyalty program, I think being able to offer that deeper customer experience by partnering with a brand that is complementary to your own, whether that's through having a shared demographic or, you know, having a product that's complementary to your product or service, really helps to drive and create that more deeper customer value that now, you know, as Andrew's touched on, the expectations that customers have is so much higher now, and being able to provide that with that amazing experience by partnering will just help build your engagement within a loyalty program. And again, with a partnership, it's relatively low effort. A lot of brands now already have partnerships that they can go and activate and bring in to a loyalty program, which again helps to create richer insight, understanding who your customer is and how they're using those different products and rewards that you can provide. Another really interesting one is actually the rise of paid loyalty programs. So, you know, a really big one that everyone will know is obviously Amazon Prime, which is by far the biggest loyalty program. They've got over 66 million subscribers to that. And, you know, they really champion convenience with their perks of their paid loyalty programs. So I'm sure most of us are probably an Amazon Prime subscriber tapping into that. And it's really affordable. You know, the statistics actually show that if you already have customers on your free loyalty program, they're really likely to actually pay for a paid loyalty program, as long as those perks actually give them that extra value, you know, you treat them as that VIP that they are. Other brands that have done this really well, particularly in the retail space, are brands like Sephora and Lululemon, who provided exclusive access to special events for their paid loyalty members, you know, early access to sales or any new products that you've got coming in. So when you're doing the paid loyalty programs, I think it's being able to tap into what your customers are sharing with you in terms of what they find valuable and what's going to really motivate them to actually engage with you, you know, time and time again through these loyalty programs.
I'm always fascinated by Amazon Prime. Guilty as charged. I'm a member. Amazon's always a funny one. It gets mentioned in most webinars that I host, actually, and I use Amazon far more than I probably should. Convenience is king in my world, and so, you know, I do it with a slight guilty pleasure attached to it as well, because I do think they could do so many things differently about their business, particularly packaging. But it's just astonishing when you think about it, that you pay them effectively this kind of membership fee, I guess, and they can engender millions and millions and millions of us to do that, and give us lots of perks in the process.
Yeah.
Great answer.
Yeah.
Desi, I think you wanted to add to Nabila's point as well. I'm going to go on mute while you answer, because my dog has decided to start throwing her heaviest toy around the room as well.
Oh, no problem. I'm also an Amazon Prime member, so guilty as charged. Yeah, and just really to add to Nabila's subject of what she was talking about when it came to loyalty, frictionless experiences are really key because of how customers, going back to what Andy was saying, have now focused attention and have more time to have focused attention on their online experiences. So if it's frictionless, for example, a 2019 study done by Merkle Hello World, let me just make sure I got the stats right. 54% of customers reported frustration that it took them too long to earn a reward, but then 39% expressed frustration that it was too difficult to even earn the reward. So whilst companies are saying they're writing to us just because of the pandemic, like what you said, Darren, and so forth, offering loyalty programs, offering rewards and doing all these things, having a frictionless experience is really important if they want to sustain any interest gathered from that first contact.
Yeah, 100% agree with you, Desi, on that one. It's really important.
It's a really important point, and it's also about, I think I'm going to go to Emily now. Thank you, Desi, for that. But Emily, I also want to talk about how customers are made to feel by the way that we communicate with them as well. And even on the last webinar we did, we talked a lot about that end-to-end experience. But I think loyalty is engendered by the way that you left a customer feeling on the back of a transaction or an interaction. So how do you make your top customers feel special and appreciated?
Yeah, definitely. I think we're in the fortunate position that we're still a young company. We're only 2 years old, so we can really bring a very, very personalized experience to our top customers. So we can identify them. We can do very personal things. We can send them handwritten Christmas cards. We can send them surprise gifts. We can really treat them like our super fans. We call them our super saints. And not every company has that ability because, you know, as you get bigger, that gets more and more difficult. I think something that I've really noticed from the small amount of people that make up actually a big part of our revenue, who are these super saints, that they really care about the brand. And if they've been with you from the very, very beginning, they feel like they are part of your journey. They almost feel part of the team. So they really appreciate it when you ask their opinion on something, because they are very, very happy to give an opinion and they love being involved. So recently we did a customer survey And it was amazing the amount of people that answered. It was 50 questions. So it was a considerable amount of time that we were asking them to spend on talking about our brand and how it made them feel, and what they wanted to see more of and what they wanted to see less of. And I was really blown away by how many of them responded and put really detailed answers. I think often with startups like ours and small companies, you feel like this kind of personalization doesn't apply to you because you don't have access to huge amounts of data, you don't have the budget to get lots of software and things like that, whereas just interacting with your customers on a very basic level is personalization. And I think that our followers on Instagram and the database that we're building really appreciate it when we ask them questions and make them feel like they're part of our team, even down to just on Instagram showing who's behind the team and giving our brand a face is really important. I think because we're an independent beer brand and often we get asked, well, aren't you, you seem like you're everywhere, how can you possibly be 2 years old? You must be owned by someone like Heineken. And we're not. And it's really important that people know that we are a small independent business and we're doing big things, and just showing, our founder, Luke, has lots of interactions with the customers. He works with me to write the emails himself. He always makes sure that they're coming from him. And I think people really, really appreciate that level of kind of interaction and making it feel like we actually care about their opinion, because we genuinely do, especially at the size we're at the moment. We love hearing their feedback. So I think it's kind of making them feel special, but also never underestimating that every single touch point you have along your journey is important. So when I first joined the business, a lot of our emails, like our order confirmation, were very transactional. It just said your order number and that was it. And actually order confirmations are one of the emails that will get the highest open rate, because people order and then they want to make sure that the order has gone through. So that's such a brilliant opportunity to make them feel special, give them a bit of information about the brand, make them feel like they've bought into something really amazing, rather than just saying, here's your order number and your delivery will arrive in 3 to 5 days. People know that that's, they're going to open it. That's the information that they want to receive. But then you have such an opportunity to give them, even if it's a couple of bullet points about your brand, about the liquid inside our bottle, about the story of how our founder, Luke, created Lucky Saint. And a lot of people miss that opportunity by just thinking it's transactional, I don't need to bother. So it's kind of appreciating. We always say everything we put out there needs to be as excellent as the liquid in our bottle, and that's from every single email that goes out, from order confirmation all the way to if somebody decides to cancel their subscription, we make sure that that email is really special and makes them feel like they still want to be part of the brand, even if they're not having a monthly subscription.
It's incredible, isn't it? I think customers absolutely are up for a bit of communication with you, providing that the communication is pitched right and they care about you enough, so that to care about you enough, they need to love your product and the way that you get it to them, however that is as well. It reminds me of my Hotel Shock days, when in the early days of Hotel Shock, we still have the tasting club. It had 100,000 members who got a different box of chocolates every single month through their letterbox. And in that box was a voting card, and they could just simply score each chocolate out of 10. And the amounts of cards we got back every single month, I mean, in the tens of thousands, to the level of engagement, and that fed the strategy of what ended up in the store and what didn't make it out into the mainstream. And our customers love just having that sort of little bit of control, if you like, over the future direction of the business. And founder-led businesses are important. And you look at the size of HC now, Hotel Shock, Angus is still very much frontman, and so and will remain to be for some time. So some really interesting points. Thank you so much. I must try your products. Well, I haven't actually tried it, so I will. I've made a note. Rebecca, Seekology, obviously as you said in your intro, you've had a challenging year, to say the least, opening stores, closing stores, and so on, having it all done, kind of these forces of nature working against you, it must have felt. How have you managed to sort of keep engaged with customers, and how have you done that differently since the original lockdown?
Yeah, a few different examples I can probably give to illustrate some of the things the other panelists have been talking about. So firstly, building on what Emily was saying around how a small company can really deliver on personal customer service. Everything we do is pretty much tailored to our individual customers. So we send a lot of individual emails. I have a very small team, so I keep very close to customer service. If anything goes wrong, then I'm usually the one that fixes it. So I get that feedback firsthand. And we've also been replicating the customer service that we used to offer in store online. So one of the things that was really important to me in creating Seekology was a safe and impartial way to shop for beauty products. And I'm sure you all know, but if you go into a department store and you ask 20 different people, what's the best moisturizer for me, you'll get 20 different answers, because most of the people working in that beauty hall are employed by the brands themselves as part of the concessions. So I wanted to create something where a customer could come into Seekology and ask about their skin concern in particular, and get that real impartial advice across a big range of brands. And that's something that we do now online. So we developed online skincare consultations, which have been really fantastic in terms of delivering that customer loyalty. The customers that have been through the consultation process, which is free, have a much higher basket size. They have a much higher retention rate relative to other customers that we have on our platform. So that's been a really exciting way to engage. Secondly, content. So delivering particularly video content online has been really fantastic, both for us to engage with our customers, but also, as you mentioned, founder-led businesses. I think people are really interested to hear the stories of the brands that we sell. And so we then amplify their stories and help them share those stories with our customers, which has been working very well. And then the final piece is something that Nabila touched on, which is around collaboration. So our second store is actually in collaboration with a luxury yoga and fitness center in Richmond. And we're definitely looking for more of those kinds of collaborations for our future retail opportunities, where there's a great synergy in terms of the customers that might be in that space already and our customers too. And online, we're now working with Live Well London, which is a fantastic wellbeing events company. And we've just launched a Christmas market online with them at the beginning of December. So really thinking about how we can collaborate and work very differently with people who have a similar ethos, a similar customer base to us, which is a real kind of win-win situation. So yes, it's been a very interesting first year for Seekology. It hasn't exactly panned out the way I was intending, but it's also opened up different doors and different ways of doing things for us.
And you know what, you're still here as well, you know, which I think is something to celebrate. And as you said, you've found different ways and workarounds of doing things. And I think some of that blended approach that you're talking about is truly the way that we're going to see retail evolve over the coming months and years as well. Thank you. We've had a question in actually. Thank you, Mark, wherever you are, for this question. I'm going to put this one to you, Desi, if I may. So we've all been talking about brands, but do you believe that delivery marketplaces such as Just Eat or Groupon diminish customer loyalty? So someone will just reach for a coupon maybe and use those instead of the brand. Good thing, bad thing? Discuss.
Yeah, that's a good question, actually. And thanks.
Thank you, Mark.
So what I found quite interesting about that is that it's not necessarily a bad thing. It really does depend on how the organizations that those coupons are for, how they react to it. So there are some organizations, retail e-commerce, for example, that may decide to go on an offensive, but in a slightly different way. So they would decide to say, for example, go on sale all the time. So does that help? Well, in the short term, yes, but in the long term, no, because it would devalue their product. So if a customer at any given time is, oh, well, this was 60% yesterday, now it's 50% today, I'm going to wait until next week to buy my product. What we've been able to discover from our research, especially in the past and recently, even this year, early this year, was that customers, when it came to always sell e-commerce organizations, they had that mindset of, well, actually, I don't have to necessarily go to this organization because yesterday it was 60, today it's 50. Let me go to Groupon or Just Eat or another type of discount competitor, which would allow me to take advantage of a better, what's the word I'm trying to find? A better discount rate. Then that's how it can devalue organizations, because then customers start to look at a brand not as premium as it was or as it was originally positioned, they start to look at it almost like a discount store. And that's where organizations don't want to go in terms of direction. So yes, it can work well, but it depends on how the organization really handles or responds to those types of discount codes and vouchers that are being offered for their products.
It can be a blessing and a curse all at once, I think, can't it? It's how you navigate that tightrope. Emily, do you want to add to that answer? I mean, there's, you know, you're a premium brand. Do you use discount? Add to Desi's answer in the context of all of that.
Yeah, definitely. So we do use discounts, but very sparingly and very, very carefully. I think, especially for us, we're working in the space of alcohol-free, and historically, a lot of value has been put on alcoholic content. So someone might look at a seedlip versus a gin and tonic, and 2 or 3 years ago, to argue that the seedlip should be the same price as the gin and tonic, people would have, said, well, hang on a minute, that's 0% alcohol and that's 45% alcohol. How can that possibly be the case? But so much craft now goes into alcohol-free products because that it's just improved so much. And I think for us, we are working really, really hard to elevate the experience when it comes to alcohol-free. So in terms of discounts, every now and again, we might do a discount when we're working with a partner, if there's a database of people that we really feel is perfect for us, and we might use that as a little nudge to get them to try Lucky Saint. But in general, we try to really hammer home the message of our ingredients and the fact that we use 4 natural ingredients, the fact that we're brewed like any other beer. We just use a special process at the end to take the alcohol out. So in fact, there's more of a process involved with alcohol-free than with alcoholic beer. So I think it really depends what kind of brand you're creating. If you're creating a premium brand, especially in a category which previously maybe hasn't been as valued as its counterpart, you need to be really, really careful of how you're using discounts, and maybe just choose the channels where it's a little bit more behind the scenes. It's speaking to an audience that is already interested in a product like yours, rather than kind of spreading it far and wide. We very, very rarely, unless it's for a particular calendar date or celebrating our birthday or something like that, we very rarely put 10% discounts on Facebook ads or with social media influencers, for example, because we want to raise the price point of alcohol-free and get people to a place where they are willing to spend money on something that they understand is a crafted product and isn't, it's not a soda and lime versus an alcohol-free beer. They're not on the same par. So I think it's very, important to be careful and choose correctly if you're trying to create a premium brand when it comes to discounts.
Yeah, I'm guilty on that point on the seedlip front. I remember going to buy a bottle of seedlip. I think it was last Christmas in Waitrose, and I had a friend coming to a drinks party that doesn't drink. And so I thought I'd go and get some seedlip, would be interesting. And I remember being astonished at how much money it was, and how I could buy real gin for less money. So, but I think I hadn't really given it the thought about the craft that goes in to the product. So I think I was definitely guilty as judging it on the alcohol content, justifying the price to start with. But thank you for that. Andy, I believe you want to add to this, because these aggregators can be another route to customers in changing times, you believe, yeah?
Yeah, yes, exactly what I was going to say. So yeah, again, if I go back even 20 years ago, people were talking about these aggregators taking over everything. And I think, in some markets where, maybe there's not that much difference between products, things like insurance, where we know very much a lot of people will go straight to an aggregator first. They work really well in certain spaces. It's happening in energy now. But for shopping, retail, people still want something slightly different. But you'll always have a proportion of customers that, price might be more important to them than anywhere. So it is a good route to a different sort of customer. So for me, when we're going through a massive change such as this, and things will keep changing, we've got to embrace those new channels. And, brands should test them and should test if they work for them and if they work for a specific type of their customers. But yeah, again, I can't see the end of retail anytime soon being completely overtaken by aggregators.
Okay, I agree. I agree with you as well. Rebecca, what's your view on it? Because Seekology can act in this way as well, right?
In a sense, yes. So we're effectively an aggregator, but a very highly curated one in a particular vertical sector. So we do appeal to a very specific customer that's interested in beauty and well-being and wants to shop independent. And what we found is that actually there's a huge demand from brands to be part of our platform, because actually many of our brands started out selling direct to consumer and found that potentially the cost of customer acquisition through that channel was higher than they had expected. And at the same time, they weren't willing to go to a big aggregator that was multi-category, where they felt like they would get lost and they wouldn't be able to tell that story. So what we can do for them is be an aggregator, but with that prestige that they're part of something that's very curated. And also, because we have physical stores, usually, give them the opportunity to actually showcase their product and their story in that physical store as well, which is something that other aggregators wouldn't be able to do for them. So it's a bit of a hybrid business model between a traditional retailer, a marketplace, but it's also online and offline.
Okay, thank you for that. And thank you all for that succession of answers that led on from the question that we received. Thank you, Mark, for your question. Hopefully that covers it for you. Nabila, I'm going to change tact slightly, and I'm going to come to you, if I may. The successors to the millennials, the good old Gen Z, many generations after me, I can assure you. How do we get their loyalty? How do we get their interest in loyalty? Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think there's two key elements here that firstly, it's understanding what is a driver of loyalty for Gen Z. And then if you're looking to create a loyalty program, what could you include in that that's going to really get them engaged? I feel quite bad for Gen Z because they get quite a bad rep being these like brand butterflies that dart around. There's actually great amounts of research and data that actually proves otherwise. From Draper's recent report that they did on the shifts in consumer behaviour for 2020, actually just under half of Gen Z, the largest proportion, described themselves as being relatively loyal. And if you bring that in with those who said they were loyal, which was 32%, you're shifting into 80% of this generation describe themselves as being loyal, which I think is really interesting because a lot of people don't paint them that way. What's different about Gen Z, though, is that they actually prioritize their values and they gravitate towards brands that they feel really reflect their worldview. And that's what's slightly different about them, is that things, yes, price is important, style is important, the quality of your product and, you know, ensuring that you're delivering a good customer experience. But other factors that are really important drivers for Gen Z are things like sustainability, equality and diversity. So what we find through this report and this study shows that Gen Z shoppers actually, when you get the product right, 70% of them are actually willing to even pay more. And they're typically slightly price sensitive compared to other generations as well. They're known to, you know, spend more often, but with a smaller basket price. But they've actually said that, you know, if you're being vocal about equality or diversity, if your product's sustainable, they will pay more for that. And that really shows that their values are really inherent to who they want to relate and spend their money with. When it comes to what you could actually include in a loyalty program for them, as I mentioned, they're price sensitive, so thinking about what you can do to help them save money, but also they're interested in things like gamification. So having that tiered loyalty program where they can kind of, you know, prove that they are super loyal and work their way up to gain extra rewards or extra perks that they can then share on their social platforms. They're obviously really interested in personalization. What I thought was a really interesting statistic within the report was that over 77% of them said that they are willing to actually share their data in return for getting a customized report. So it kind of goes back to what Emily touched on. You know, people are really willing, particularly Gen Z, are really willing to give their opinion. They're happy to share more information about their preferences, as long as you're giving that customized experience and actually using that data for what it's supposed to be used for, which is personalizing and giving them a unique experience. And within that, I think if you don't make sure that those rewards are compelling, they're also the generation that will leave the quickest as well. So it's making sure that you are constantly reviewing what you're doing and personalizing that program to keep them engaged.
It's a thank you so much, and it's actually you know, Gen Z obviously are known for their use of social as well, and it's a nice segue actually, because the question's coming for you, Emily. This is from another Mark, a different Mark, and Mark saying that obviously you've mentioned Instagram posts, and given that there will be some 56 million posts on Instagram by about 4 o'clock this afternoon in total, and every day thereafter, what would you recommend for generating standout and clarity of messaging for growing a loyal following on those platforms?
Yeah, so we've actually been having a lot of debate around our social channels within the Lucky Saint team recently, because we're kind of planning a bit of an overhaul from a design perspective. But I think when it comes to Instagram in particular, which is the focus for us in terms of channels, it isn't just about growing a huge number of people, it's about the engagement as well. And I think that the way that you do that is to make sure that the content that you're putting out there and the way that you're earning these new followers is relevant to your product. So for example, we based our kind of social media strategy, I suppose, on the insight that our audience and the people that buy our products are 25 to 45, normally in a bit more of a responsible time in their life, and that they really love food and fitness, so they kind of appreciate balance. So when we're planning social media competitions, we always make sure that we're partnering with brands for those competitions that have a similar audience to that demographic, so that we're actually bringing on people who are going to be interested in our products and going to be interested in our content, rather than just aiming for a big number. Because if you were trying to just get a big number, you could do competition after competition, and you could do tons of competitions with tons of partners without really thinking about who you're partnering with, and that's the wrong thing to do. And we have, I think, 4 criteria when it comes to the partners that we work with, and the 4th and final one, which everyone that we work with has to kind of match, is that we're proud to work with them. We're proud to put them on our Instagram channel. We're not kind of hiding them in a carousel of images. So I think when you're trying to build that loyal following, think about the demographic that you're going after eventually. Sorry, there's some screeching going on outside my window. Someone's disagreeing with me outside.
I thought someone's building was on fire for a second.
Yeah. So I think it's, think about who you're actually trying to attract, rather than just thinking about attracting people or attracting big numbers, because it would be way better to have a following of 15,000 really engaged followers than 100,000 who just wanted to win a prize and don't really care about your product.
It's an astonishing one, isn't it? And you can really see that coming out on social sometimes, when there's collaborations or partnerships or competitions for the purpose of nothing, really. It's just been to fill some airtime. So I think that kind of being proud to partner and having a purpose behind your posts is going to become more and more important as well.
Yeah, and don't be afraid to turn stuff down. If someone, just because they've got a big following, doesn't mean they're right for you and they're the right person to post about your product. Don't be kind of blindsided by big numbers.
Yeah, I mean, I always feel that way a bit about influencers as well. You know, do they really use your product? You know, I get tons of people wanting to get free product or a small amount of money for Scrub, the skincare brand I look after, and they really want to use our product. They just want to increase their own following, and and customers, I think, are starting to see through that as well. So influence for influence sake, rather than their real brand advocates. Desi, I'm going to come to you on this one. This is a question coming from a Retail Bulletin guest, someone that's anonymous. But they're saying, are customers becoming more savvy? I think they are. And how do you manage more clued up shoppers, and is loyalty as valuable? So I guess this person's asking, it's clued up shoppers, savvy shoppers, value versus loyalty. I guess this is the question. What are your thoughts?
Well, that's a really good question, actually. I think a lot of it does boil down to how you project yourself as a brand. Whether you project yourself as one that is value, or whether you project yourself as one that, you know, can project that loyalty, can fulfill on that loyalty, on those promises that you give to customers. And a lot of that does come down to how you create, you could say, going back to frictionless experiences, but now we're kind of like talking about that in combination with online and offline experiences. So before the pandemic, we had offline experiences and online experiences in isolation. So sometimes for customers, it became quite difficult for them, as research showed, to be able to match the two together. So does my brand online that I buy from show me the same loyalty as the brand that I shop with in store? So as things progressed, it became slightly different, because shops opened and closed and opened and closed. And Rebecca, I mean, as you said, Darren, I mean, she's had lots of that experience, seeing that happen within our organization. So it's how we create a more, you could say, seamless experience between the two. So that builds up that, you could say, confidence in the customer, that yes, they can believe and feel that a company can be loyal to them, as well as provide the right level of value especially when it comes to going back to an earlier question about discounts and so forth. So some companies will prefer to, if we can lower our price, then we can make sure that we sell product direct from us to the customer. That's slightly more effective from a profit standpoint than going via a discount organization. I mean, you guys will probably agree with that, I'm sure. So when you tip the line, or when you cross that line, that's when all of a sudden you start to break that psyche or that psychological view of the customer, of how they view the brand, whether they're just a value brand, they're not premium anymore. So yes, it can be quite a tricky question, especially now during this time, of how companies have managed that loyalty versus value aspect. And if those experiences are seamless, then it makes it easier for the customer to continue to buy in now and moving forward.
We're being asked on the Q&A, Desi, if you can just illustrate your point with an example.
Okay, so let's give you an example. So one example could be how a company will offer their own discount, or sell items versus potentially getting a concession item via an external discount or voucher. Via concessions, you tend to make less money as an organization. The company I worked for before, they had two different levels of profit when it came to their own products and concession products. Because concession, you were kind of restricted with regards to how much you can actually make on that product. Whereas if it's your own product, especially if you're an organization that sells multiple different types of products, different brands and so forth, then it becomes slightly more difficult. So from that perspective, if you were to have let's find the right word here, your own vouchers, and you were to offer that to the customer, from an illustrative standpoint, it would make it easier for the customer to say, well, I'm going to use their vouchers because I'll get more rewards for my loyalty that way than me going via, you could say, Groupon or another organization like that. So not sure if that illustration quite applies, but that's one of the ways in which I found in the last company I worked for, that they were able to try and keep their customers by creating their own versions of loyalty, such as vouchers and so forth, that was direct to them instead of going via other organizations.
Thank you so much. And I think, Andy, you have a view about changing behaviors on this subject as well, yeah?
What I was going to say is another thing that's changed massively, over this last 6 months. People are looking at more before they make a purchase than ever before. So, we're not just going in and buying the one product we want. We're actually looking at many different, substitutes. Which one do we want to end up with? Also, people are engaging with reviews more than ever before. This is the sort of way we've now got to change how we position our products. People are also buying a product and then they're looking at more products that are either related to that or other versions of that product. Do they change their mind? Are they going to cancel that order? Are they going to send it straight back? So these are all, massive changes to how we buy things online. And, we've got to watch for more of these because, again, come early next year, we could change again. The biggest peak online, how are we going to change how we shop for Christmas? How is that going to then feed into, January and beyond? So, yeah, just keep watching how people change their behaviors within your customer base.
I'm going to carry on this line, I think, with the panel at the moment. So, Nabila, what's your view on this? You're on mute. You're on mute, Nabila. It's all right.
Sorry, there's always one of us, isn't there?
There's always one. It's all right. No problem.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting to understand how the customer is behaving in this particular time. And I think Desi made a really good point about just having that seamless experience as well. I think obviously with the rise of omnichannel, just being able to, reach your customer across all of those touch points in a really seamless and purposeful way is going to be really important in connecting with that customer and keeping that customer during this time where they are browsing a lot more, they are willing to try new things now. So being able to deliver on your promise of a great experience across all of your touch points is going to be key.
Emily, your views?
Andy mentioned reviews, which we've seen as a huge part of our e-com growth. We went from, I think when I joined, about 36 reviews on Amazon over the past 9 months. We're now on nearly 400. And especially with products like alcohol-free, people are looking for recommendations. And I think kind of to hark back to some of the things we were saying earlier about asking people's opinion and not being afraid to ask people's opinion, in every one of our e-com boxes we always ask people, if tell us what you think, review us online, and that has caused a huge spike in our reviews, and therefore people go onto Amazon, go onto our website, and they're buying with confidence. And I think now more than ever, because people are buying online, they're not getting the chance which would normally we'd see going into a pub, trying us in a pub, because before lockdown we were very much on trade first. So normally people would go in, try us in a pub, enjoy us in that environment, and then go and buy us online, whereas we don't have that opportunity now, or it kind of comes on and off. So now people are looking for reviews, because they're not kind of speaking to the bartender and the bartender saying this is actually a brilliant alcohol-free beer. So they're going online, they're looking on Trustpilot, they're looking on Amazon, and they're looking for reviews. So to encourage your customers to leave those reviews for you is a really brilliant way of kind of growing that community, and we've seen that massively over the past 8 or 9 months.
Thank you so much. Rebecca, your views?
Yeah, couldn't agree more. We're a little earlier in our journey from a reviews perspective, but it's definitely something that we're starting to talk about more, because we do already have, I think, 5-star reviews across the board on Trustpilot, Facebook and Google. And I think Google in particular, when you have a physical store, is extremely helpful, because people might be looking for, say, a beauty store in the area. And if then we've got that 5-star review and we've got great engaging content on Google, like the photos and updated posts, then I think that's been very helpful in terms of getting people through the door for us. I think also we've done a lot around the sort of social proof of the products that we feature. So Emily mentioned this earlier, but actually using our team to highlight which products we use, what are our favorites. I've got a few of them up here behind me, you can see. But actually, we're real advocates for the brand, and harnessing that enthusiasm from the small team at a startup and conveying that to customers, I think is a very kind of genuine way to engage and to highlight particular products or particular categories. And then the third piece for us, I would say, is around the influencers that we've used, and you mentioned this earlier, but we've definitely worked very hard to find influencers who are genuinely interested in what we do, and they're often friends of friends, so there's a personal connection, and actually we have seen some really great results from those, both in terms of the additional audiences they can bring to us on social media, of the right kinds of people and the right engaged kinds of people that Emily was describing earlier, but also genuine sales. So for example, I did a video for an influencer where I featured my top 5 products, and I kid you not, I had a customer who went onto the website that afternoon and she bought every single one of those 5 products. And that power of having the endorsement from me and from this other influencer, someone who had exactly the right audience, which for us is 35 to 55-year-old women who are a little bit more conscious about their consumption. They probably do shop on Amazon, but they feel a bit guilty about it. Yeah. So really tapping into the influencers who have that exact same audience, that's been something that's been really successful.
Yeah, and that customer that ordered everything probably feels like, they made a really informed and accredited choice, if you like, as well. So they probably felt good about that purchase too. Mm-hmm. We're coming into the last sort of 7 or 8 minutes. Desi, given all these recent changes in climate lately, where and how are customers engaging more with brands in e-commerce? Can you give us an example?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think the pandemic, of course, and we talked about this throughout the discussion, has had a lot of changes what we've seen. For example, before COVID-19, we commuted every day to an office. We took our children to school or daycare. We exercised in the gym. We socialized in large groups at pubs, etc. Went to restaurants. We bought products in store as well. We went out in various other different facets, such as social gatherings, to the movies, to watch a film. We went on vacation. We went on a holiday all around the world. We went to the doctor's office. We also went to, you could say, if we had to fill out government papers, like get a new passport, we went to the passport office to do that. Now, very interesting to illustrate. We work from home. We don't really commute into the office anymore. Homeschooling or caring for children at home now. We exercise at home, which is created a huge spike, as Andy talked about, when it came to buying different types of products, for example, like gym stuff and all sorts of things along those lines. So we also saw that spike very different as well with regards to the types of essential stuff we buy. So toilet paper went off the shelves like no one could imagine. And so all of a sudden, you know, that became huge. So all of these different behavioral changes. We bought our products online. We talked about that already. We rent movies from home. We stream more than anything else. We go on holiday in our minds, in our living rooms. We see on social media.
Those days.
Yeah, right. We daydream, or we even see pictures of that now, where ones have kind of like dressed up in different things, and they're taking pictures of themselves and put that on Instagram. So people's behaviors have completely changed. And so people now, because they're spending more time on websites with that behavioral change and apps as well, that means that negative experiences are emphasized hugely, especially if they have them. But then it does mean that they also have more time, and because they have more time, it does mean that it doesn't necessarily mean, I should say, that they are as tolerant, because everything is now more emphasized. So time, the focus of the customer, all of that's evident for companies because they see that increased conversion. But it could, as Andy said, be a false increase, because what will happen when things change? If things change, how are companies preparing for that? I mean, my point, Darren, ultimately is that the causes for these differences are hugely complex, just as the virus is complex, and the causes for that, the economic, political, and all of these things as to where the virus is touched. So the magnitude, the exact nature of the changes really come across from a UX standpoint, 4 main areas: behavioral, geographical, psychological, and temporal as well. So from that standpoint, it does create huge levels of, you could say, uncertainty. But for organizations who want to take advantage of that by doing the research and by getting the findings of what their customer bases are and how those different aspects have changed within their customer base, it could be a great opportunity for them to take advantage of that and still profit and still survive in this climate.
Desi, thank you so much for that full answer there. Thank you so much. We are coming into the last few minutes, so we've got some questions coming in from our audience, which I'm keen to wrap up as well. So Desi, thank you so much for your time on the panel today, and I'm going to take the last few questions into our panelists as you get your last questions before we close. So Andy, I am going to put a question to you that's come in regarding that American import known as Black Friday. It's looming, it's coming up. Do you think, this is asked from Katie, thank you Katie, do you think with Black Friday looming, this both hinders and provides opportunities for brands when it comes to loyalty?
It certainly does, you know, without question. Every year, you know, the Black Friday numbers go up, but also every year many brands see new customers that they've never seen before. You know, again, I always say this, but all of you, please think about how you are as a consumer. How many different things are you looking for on Black Friday to see where you can get that deal? And again, just as, you know, Desi specifically has talked about, you know, good user experience. You know, if you can deliver that during Black Friday, you've got a great chance of looking after that customer, you know, into next year and beyond. And that's really the big opportunity for everyone. But this year, more than ever, because people aren't going to be shopping in the same way. So, you know, it is vital. Probably the other big change we've seen is that, you know, Black Friday is elongated each year over the last few years. It's becoming more of a November sale. And again, we're probably all seeing that now. If we all look at our inboxes after this webinar, you'll have a lot of Black Friday emails in there now, I can guarantee. But yeah, it's crucial for getting new customers, and but we as brands, we've got to do a really good job of giving them something different and giving them that good reason to come back, whether that be how you follow up with them with your segmentation strategies, or what a good job you do while you've got them on Black Friday, because that is what we will all remember. And I think I'd just like to mention a point Nabila made earlier about you know, Generation Z, what's really important to them around, being open to when things go wrong and going elsewhere. We're all like that now. That's what's changed for everybody since the pandemic. We're one click away from a competitor. So it's more important than ever not to have, problems with the booking process or, challenges getting those things out to people, because we'll all click away to a competitor for a different experience.
Andy, thank you. Very full answer. And thank you to RedEye as well for their support for the event today as well. Nabila, coming to you for your final question. From William, any thoughts on the subscription economy? Mute.
I've done it again. Sorry.
Right.
This actually links back to the first question you asked me with emerging trends within the loyalty space, and paid loyalty programs, so essentially a subscription model, is actually really something that customers are willing to get involved in. So as I mentioned before, there's a report done by Loyalty 360 that shows that if you already have customers who are part of like a free loyalty, so engaging with your emails, for example, there's 73% chance that audience have said that they will actually invest in a subscription model. The key though for when you create a subscription model is that you actually create those amazing VIP perks, and you make it worth that value that that money that they spend, they're getting that perceived value back in the offers and the experiences that you provide. And we all know that paid loyal customers, they're going to have a higher purchase frequency, they have higher basket values. So it really is a no-brainer if you can pull off this subscription model by really tapping into what those benefits are that you can offer. You can really retain and build a great engaged audience through a subscription model. Thanks, Nabila. And again, thank you for your time on the panel today as well. Emily, this has come in just last minute about asking if anyone's had an experience with creating a loyalty scheme that's not been hosted internally, so been run by an external agency. Have you got any experience on that in your current or previous businesses, or have you got any recommendations?
No, I think we've got a subscription service, and we treat our subscribers and our super saints, people who buy frequently but might not be subscribed. We treat them in a very particular way and make them feel really special. In terms of a loyalty program, I think if we were to do one, and we're talking a lot about loyalty and referral programs as well, we would probably personally want to keep that quite close to our chest, because I think if people are going to partake in a loyalty program, it's a really great opportunity to have that direct line of communication with your best and strongest customers. That being said, that's partly because of the size we are as a business, and we would want to keep it kind of in-house and make sure that we had that direct communication, because we learn so much from talking to our customers. That might change as we get bigger, but for now, I personally, for us, would keep it in-house, but that's very specific to a startup and to a business of our size. Emily, thank you. And thank you again for your time on the panel today. Rebecca, I'm going to wrap up with you, if I may. And once we've done this question, we've covered everyone's questions as well. So we've done a good job. And by the way, panel, we've held our audience today as well. So good work. Wrapping it up, Rebecca, is it important to be honest with the customer? So if we mess up, should we say sorry, offer a voucher, etc., suggest another brand, even if that could be right? Is honesty and openness the best policy? And that's from a Retail Bulletin guest. I don't know who they are, but thank you for that closing question.
So for us, 100%. I think your approach to this might differ slightly depending on what kind of retailer you are, but our objectives are to build a loyal base of customers for the future, not just to make a quick buck. So we have definitely had cases, particularly in store, where we have said to a customer, actually, we don't have something that's right for you today. And that also helps us inform how we take the range forward, what brands we look for in the future. But I absolutely wouldn't sell a product to a customer if I didn't think it was right for them. And then I think when things go wrong, which they do, especially within a small business, sometimes things slip through the gaps. We've got some long postal delays at the moment. It looks like Royal Mail's pretty backed up. Actually, just being very honest with our customer. The benefit of being small is that I can go back personally and I can explain. I can say, I'm the founder of Seekology. I'm working with small businesses, and thank you so much for your support. And actually, people really understand that kind of personal communication. And when it's appropriate, I would give a voucher or a discount or something else to that customer. But I think actually having that personal contact is often more important for our customers. That's the right route for them. So yes, absolutely. It's, I think, for us, building trust, building honesty, and building that relationship with our customer for the long term, which should keep them coming back.
Thank you very much, Rebecca, and thank you again for your contribution to the panel, and thank you all of you again. I'm sure our audience will agree, a very talented panel, a super compelling discussion that's borne out by holding our audience. It's always good to see the audience holding firm. I'm sorry we've ran a few minutes over, but you stuck with us, so thank you for that. Thank you to everybody. My dog needs a walk, so I think it's definitely time to bring this webinar to a close. Webinar number 3 is in just less than 1 hour's time at 2 p.m. Do please join us. Emerging technologies and new CX possibilities for engaging with customers with another fresh panel. Thank you all for attending today, and I wish you all a great afternoon. Thank you.